Yo, what it do? It's your brother, Jay International, tapping back in once again, doing a car video, another one. So make sure you guys like, share, and subscribe. So I've been holding off on doing this one, and I've been kind of sitting in the background and just kind of watching everything that's been going on. So, but now I think that it is incumbent upon me to speak on this because I am a part of it. And what is that I'm talking about? What I'm talking about is the movement that started a few years back, the Black American delineation movement. Now, I am in total agreement with us delineating ourselves. I am in agreement with that. As a matter of fact, when it became viral again or trendy again, this whole thing, because this whole movement has been going on for maybe, I think, hundreds of years. Like, even with the freedmen, like from what I understand, other intelligent, scholarly, can I say leaders? I guess I can't find another word to use, but other ones have talked about us, particularly Black Americans. Dr. Claude Anderson has talked about it. Others have talked about it. But now, as of recent, in the past 5 or 6, maybe 7 years, it's become talked about a lot again because of, California talking about reparations, and they're talking about studies on reparations. So it's picked up steam once again. And so, to give some history on how I became familiar with it, it was at one point, let's say over 7 years ago. It started off with the ADOS, which was the American Descendants of Slaves. That was the first, when it became first, to my knowledge. And I remember this because I was so inspired by it. I'm like, yeah, this is great. It's time for us to delineate, like all other groups. Delineate. Pardon me if I can't say the word correct. All other groups delineate. And I could just remember, like, how I knew that how I became aware that other groups, in particular Black groups, delineated. I remember being in college, community college, Laney, Oakland, California. You know. And I was a part of, the black movement. I was a part of the conscious movement. I had joined the Black Student Union Club there, right? And I was taking a Black History class as well. So I was real Black Power conscious. I was on that type of hype. And I remember going to our meetings, and then I would see black people separated. But I was confused at the time. I'm like, why is there a separate, in the building where the meetings was at, there was a separate black group. There was a separate black group, and I didn't understand why at the time, because I was ignorant to this. But what that second black group, which you guys probably could guess, was the Africans from the African continent group. And they wanted to separate themselves because it wasn't like they weren't welcome. They purposely chose to separate themselves. And I said, okay. And then I remember another time I was dealing with a sister from East Africa, but she was born, I believe she was born here. And I remember we were sitting in the car and we were talking, and the subject matter got to like African American. And then I kept, I said, at that time I was calling myself that because I was ignorant to it, the whole term and how it came about. And I was like, I'm an African American. And she looked at me in my face and was like, no, you're not. I'm an African American. And I'm like, what are you talking about? You from Africa? I said, well, yeah. She said, well, yeah. I'm from Africa and I'm an American. So I'm an African American. And I'm like, wow. I got mad. I remember I got mad because I didn't understand. But as I think on it, and as I thought over it, I'm like, you know what? She is right. And I just recall, like, even my whole experience on that college campus, like, I was starting to deal with a sister from Ethiopia, and I thought, we met on the campus, we were studying together, and it seems like something was building between us. And I recall one time we went out to eat at a restaurant. I think it might have been an Ethiopian restaurant. And I remember we sitting down to eat, and an Ethiopian guy come in the restaurant, and he looked at her. He looked at us as we sitting at the table. And then I remember she got up and like she went to, like she's trying to go. I couldn't hear what they were saying, but from the body language, it looked like she was trying to explain something to him. And I'm like, and this is me like new in my understanding of my consciousness, right? So what that told me, what I learned from these experiences is that, and at that time I was more of my Pan-Africanist hype, right? But what I learned from those experiences is like, oh, there's a difference. Like they delineate themselves from us, and even amongst them, they delineate themselves amongst them. If you're from this country, if you're from Ghana, you're from Nigeria, you from Ethiopia, Eritrea, and then they delineate amongst that. So I say all this to say, when this thing became popular again, I was all on board, right? I was like, yeah, And I remember I created a meetup. I had a meetup group in Oakland, and it was called the American Descendants of Slaves group. And I remember I created a meetup for us to meet at a particular vegan restaurant. I think it's solely vegan. It's no longer there. It was on Broadway in Oakland. And I had so I set up a meetup for us, right? To meet and talk and discuss and plan and strategize. And so I was all on board. Now, fast forward a little bit, then a kind of fallout happened in that whole movement, because you had the ADOS, and then now what come along is the FBA, the Foundational Black Americans. And I'm like, the fallout, and I'm gonna be honest, like, how I found out, I have to be totally transparent. How I found out about the FBA movement was, lineage movement, was through Tariq, listening to Tariq Nasheed. And I was a follower. And I say I was a follower of what he was on. I was at all the Hidden Color premieres. I was buying all the Hidden Color DVDs. I remember he used to put like packages together. I would buy his packages where he would have, like, in the box, he would have, at the time he had the sunglasses. I remember he had those sunglasses. He had like a t-shirt. Then he had a bunch of his speeches that he went to. He had a few of his movies that he done before. So I was like, you couldn't tell me nothing about that, bro. Like, I was a diehard. And that's being honest. That's being transparent, right? And I remember he had a fallout with ADOS, with the attorney, the attorney brother out of Los Angeles. I can't think of his name right now. And then this light-skinned female, I can't think of her name either. Antonio, I think it's you would know his name. You know, if you know, you look it up. But I recall that when they had a fallout, I sided with Tariq. I'm like, nah, man, you know, I'm on Tariq's side, because, you know, he's a very charismatic brother. He broke it down to us how and why there was a fallout and why there was a difference. He broke it down and it made sense. He's like, hey, the ADOS movement is a proxy of the Democrats, and they're using it. They're a group, but they're backed by the Democrats. And FBA is strictly a lineage. And I was on board with that. He was saying FBA is a lineage. There is no group. There is no leader. It's just a lineage. Either you are or you ain't. Made sense. Why it made sense? Because all the other groups were doing it. All the other groups were saying, like, when they did something great, when the Jamaicans were whooping butt in the Olympics, in the race events, they always made it known that, hey, this is Jamaicans. We not just blacks, we Jamaicans. Every other group was doing the same. So I was on board with that because it made sense. Like, yeah, we are a separate people. We are a unique people. We need our own thing that acknowledges us. I don't think nobody should disagree with that, because every other group does it. It's not divisive. It's not none of that if every other group separates themselves. So it made sense. And so I was fully on board, right? Donating, all that stuff, right? And then this is something else that happened too, though, right? I met Professor Smalls. I met Professor Smalls. The first time I ran into him physically, I was in New York. I was on 125th in Harlem. I was walking down, and this is when Sinetta was still outside. And I happened to walk into an interview with Professor Smalls when that sonata was given. And I even commented, I'm in a video, asking him questions. And that was the first time I met him in the physical, and I believe I became more aware of him. And then fast forward, Professor Smalls been going to Ghana for many years. Got relationships, connections out there, everything. I signed up to go on one of Professor Smalls' groups. And even he let me know that even Dr. Umar had went to one of his groups, and he had a story about him. But I signed up to go to one of his groups, and I remember at the time I was heavy on that ADOS. I was heavy on ADOS. So when we was over there, I was talking to him about that, the whole movement. And he was like, yeah, we had movements like that before. And so he acknowledged it. He didn't, he said, yeah, we had movements like that before, and when I was coming of age, when I was coming up. And I'm like, okay, yeah, that's dope. Yeah, I'm like, I'm on board. Like, this is what we need. And it wasn't from a hate. It wasn't from a hate perspective. It was from we need to acknowledge our history, acknowledge who we are as a people, as a unique people, acknowledge our experience here in the US. Like, we need that. And so I was, it was more of a respect thing. And I was still Pan-Africanist. But Pan-African, what it means to me is that all black people on the continent of Africa in the diaspora, we need to connect. And I even had a Facebook group I created called the African Diaspora. So that was more of where my stance was at with is like, we don't need to be divided. Like, we all need to connect. And then the continent of Africa is where we all come from. And so black people need to be controlling things in the continent of Africa. The continent of Africa need to be, in alignment with us and the diaspora, and making sure that we doing stuff so we can benefit from the continent of Africa, and not these invaders, not all these other groups that are exploiting Africa. That was my stance on it, right? I wasn't like, oh, we need to all get together and kumbaya and wear the dashikis and all that. I was more like, Africa is a black continent, and we know that our ancestry is tied back to that. Hundreds of years ago, 1,000 years, we come from that. All of us come from that. Every human being. So I was like, that's what we need to be on. But and Professor Smalls, doing that whole group when we was in Ghana, I went to Ghana with him. He was like, yeah, he agreed. You know what I'm saying? He agreed. So fast forward, without drawing on the video much longer than necessary, but fast forward to now, I recall that basically it came to a point where I kind of had, I kind of had a change of heart with the brother Tariq Nasheed. And the reason why I had a change of heart is because basically it was feeling to me that, yes, he's creating these documentaries, which is very necessary for us as a people, for us to know our history, in particular for our children to know our history. But it seemed to me more so that he was creating let me sit down, y'all. He was creating, it seemed to me that he was creating these documentaries for more so his own profit. Now, yeah, in a capitalistic society, you want to profit, you want to make money, you want to take care of your family. we in the capitalist society. That's my food, y'all. I'm eating at the real famous Earl's right now. But in the capitalistic society, yeah, you want to make money, you want to take care of your family. But, and I know he built the museum, but it seemed to me that he was more so on the profit side of the situation. Let me get my food because they calling me. And the museum, I was down with the museum. I was in agreement with the museum. I donated to the museum the original idea of the museum, which was the building, his first promotion video that he made for the museum. And I'm like, yeah, we need this. We need this. Dope. But for me, it seemed that all these things are being done, but I know personally, like, you got supporters that are coming to you for help, and they have proven that they are supporters. They've proven it. They're not just saying, "Oh, I'm a supporter." Like, they've proven that they are your supporter, but you're not going out of your, like, you should help these supporters, or not even like, okay, you gotta, let's say this individual is asking for money because they're in a certain situation, like, oh, whatever, it's a situation where they need help, they need the help, and that individual is asking for that help. Like, you don't have to personally give them money, but maybe raise awareness with your influence. Like, hey, y'all, this person, this is one of our supporters. He needs assistance, or he or she needs assistance with this. And I know you can't do it, because you're going to have some people that's trying to take advantage of stuff. That's human nature. But after screening that individual, like actually screening them and doing a proper screening, he can use this influence to get his supporters to help a fellow, especially if they're FBA, a fellow FBA brother or sister. And I just seen that wasn't being done. And so that made me personally step back from the brother. Like, I personally, like, I was like, okay, yeah, I ain't gonna hate on the brother, because he is dropping good information, and the documentaries are good, especially for the youth, the black youth, to know, their history, and how, the youth are all, they don't like to read, so, well, let me not say that. I can't make a general statement like that, but in this day and age with social media and these smartphones, a lot of people don't have the attention span to read right now. So if you put it in a video form like he does, it'll be easier to get to the youth. And I'm in agreement with that, but I'm like, I'm not going to hate, I'm not going to say nothing, but I'm not financially supporting him no more at all, because it just seemed to me that, yeah, like I said, okay, these things ain't being done, like, because he can just he can raise money, like he has the ability to raise money for various things. Like he's very he has such a loyal following, and I was one of them. How do I know? I was one of them. If I had, and it's in storage right now. If it's in storage, but I can show you that I'm a loyal, because I had some of his old. I got his old stuff. I'm talking about stuff when he was still in the Mac. His channel was called what was it called? Mac, whatever, man. I can't think about it. But when he was still in the Mac days, I got material from that period of time. And if I didn't have it in storage, I would show you guys. So I'm not someone that is coming from a position of hate, or someone that's coming from a position of not having been a supporter. I am. And so I just said, I'm just going to fall back. I'm not, he's very active on YouTube. He's very active on social media. His if his videos pop up in my feed and it's something of interest, I'ma still check it out. But this was my issue now, because now this was my issue that I started to notice. For me, I'm not talking from somebody from the outside. I'm talking from a person that was involved. What I started to notice is that it seemed to me that it started to be more of an attack on those who are not FBA. And I'm talking about particular other group. I don't care about the other groups, really, to be honest. I'm talking about black people from the continent, black people from the diaspora. It started to seem to me that it kind of became hostile. Like it was kind of like an attack. Like, okay, it seemed to me, okay, yes, we need to call out those they call tethers that are sabotaging us, that are against us, that are, those ones that are doing everything to be against foundational black Americans. Yes, they need to be called out. Yes. I agree. I still agree. I still stand on that, right? Especially the tethers that, talk bad about reparation and saying how we aren't due our reparations, and those ones that talk bad about foundational black Americans, say we don't work hard, we don't do nothing, we lazy. Like, all those need to be called out. Ones that point finger at us when we do when one of us do something wrong, when let's say the ignorant among us, the dusty, as he would call them, the dusty Negroes among us, like how they would say, oh, look, all these black Americans are the same. Like, we need to call them out. And I'm still in agreement with that. But it seemed to me that it started to get hateful just to people just being from a different country in Africa or being from the diaspora. That's what it started to seem like to me. Even especially amongst his followers in the comment section. I would be looking at some of the comments, and they would be just so hateful. Like, you were just talking about, it got to a point where if any black person from the diaspora or from the African continent called in, they will automatically just attack them and calling them that person tether. Even that, like before, and sometimes that non-FBA person would come on in support of us. And they would end up supporting us, but before they even got a chance to show that they supported us and support our movement, they were already being attacked. Tether. And I'm like, oh, this shit crazy. Like, I started to say, like, this has started to turn into like a hate type of group, or a hate type of situation, or a hate following. Like, that's what it started to seem like to me. And I'm like, nah, this ain't what this about. And Tyreek wasn't really getting on these individuals in his comment. I know he can't see all the comments because it's like thousands of them, but he wasn't really checking these individuals like, hey, let's not do that. Let's not do that. He was actually feeding their energy. Like, he's feeding them, And now bring it to this whole thing with the brother 19 Keys, who I indirectly have a connection to him. For one, he's from Oakland. I know he said he spent his time between Oakland and St. Louis, but I personally, let's say I met his father first when his father is in the Nation of Islam, is a nation member, and I met his father through going to the meetings in West Oakland. I, at the time, didn't know that 19 Keys was his son. I don't think at the time that 19 Keys was like real well known on social media at the time. But I met his pops. His pops was militant. His pops is militant. His pops is about his business. His pops is about his business. And I met his pops by going to the meetings. And I think of like two of his brothers were I met at the same meetings. Maybe it might be his older brothers that I met at those same meetings. But I wouldn't come to find out about Brother 19 Keys until later on, when I think, when he started to become popular on social media. And then I seen when he was mentioning who he was and who his pop was, I'm like, oh, that's, what I'm saying? I'm like, oh, that's his son. And so one of my close friends at the time, we since had a fallout. He continued. So a part of the nation, they had a security business. And so my friend at the time, I actually introduced him to the temple. I was the one that brought him in. A friend that's no longer here, rest in peace, the rapper P, he brought me in, but I brought this friend in, and after I left, he stayed on and still was working with them for years. That brother brought his brother on, and his younger brother is the one that actually had more of a direct connection with 19 Keys. Like, I think they were going to the meetings at the same, like they have more of a connection. So me and 19 Keys, if you call it connection, is like very like indirect. Like, I know I met his pops. He know my friends at the time and his brother. Like they know, like they know, like he knows that's the connection, right? And so when I'm listening to this video of now what's going on with this whole situation about 19 keys being considered taken out of the documentary. Hold on, let me drink some juice right quick. I heard the clip. And I think from what I heard, all he was saying is what I'm feeling like. Even reading the comments now that Tariq is talking about him, and I'm reading the comment section, and they just saying some hateful things about him now. Like now, I seen one comment like, "Oh, he's a tether." He's not a tether. I met his pops, but the followers of Tariq are now like they're very hateful in the comment section, and this is what kind of turned me off to the whole thing, because I saw that before that. I saw that like they attacked people. They were just attacking people just because they wasn't FBA. Not because they said anything disparaging about FBA. Not because they identified themselves as a tether. They were just attacking people just because they wasn't FBA. They was from either Africa or one of the African diaspora nations. And I was like, I can't rock with that. I can't rock with that, because this is my stance. Pan-African to me don't mean what like the type of thing that Umar is on. Like, no, we gotta hold them accountable for the sabotage that they do. And I'm talking about people from the African continent and the diaspora, where they have to be held accountable if they are against us, if they are doing disparaging things against us or trying to hold us back. But at the same time, I feel, this is how I feel. This is the difference, right? And this is what 19 Keys alluded to in the video. All the natural resources are in Africa. All the natural resources that help the United States, the natural minerals and the cobalt and the gold and the diamonds and the brass and all the natural, the cocoa that keep our country functioning is there. So there's no way that we should give that up because we on this, it's foundational over, like, no, we still should have connections. Like, try to make with those that want to connect with us. If they don't want to connect with us, forget about it. Forget them. But those that want to build relationships with us, we should still keep those doors open. We should not burn bridges by just criticizing the whole continent of Africa. Like, I feel like we should still have strategic partnerships and make it to where we can, the ones that are on our same page, like the brother out of Burkina Faso or the brother out of South Africa, Toure out of Burkina Faso. I think the other brother name is Malima out of South Africa. Like, we still need those connections, like those type of brothers. That's the connections we need. We need brothers with those type of mindsets, or what Muammar Gaddafi was trying to do before he was assassinated and taken out. Like, we need people from the continent that think like that, and we need to connect with them. But I don't agree with us being on this whole dashiki hype type of thing. Like, we just trying to wear our dashikis and go, and do all, like, I'm not in agreement with that part of it. But the part where we can take advantage of some of the resources, that's what I'm in agreement with. So this whole thing that's going on with 19 Keys is like, I don't, whether he's taken out of the documentary or not, it is what it is. That's Tariq Nasheed's decision. But I think what he said makes sense. What he was saying, what's causing this whole controversy is, man, it is what it is. Like, whether Tariq Nasheed calls himself a leader or not, he is the number one spokesman for it. So it's quite naturally for people to assume or put that label on him, because he's kind of like, to me, if there's somebody else, you let me know about. That's the only person I know that's like on the forefront of it, and he's the one that's creating these events surrounding it. Like, he had the event in Washington twice. I think, yeah, it was twice. Like, so he's the one that's putting all it together. So one would quite naturally assume that he's taking the role or the position of a leader of a movement or a group. One would just assume that. But I do think that the group has turned very hateful. And I'm not saying, let me say not group. I think that the individuals in particular that are following Tariq Nasheed has become very, very, it seems like, hateful, aggressive. And I'm not with that. I'm not with that. I don't think, like, I'm not with hating just all black people because you come from Africa or you come from Caribbeans or whatever. I think that the hate is justified for those that are traitors, that are trying to sabotage us. The hate is justified for them, but them only, period. And just because you don't agree with a certain, way things are being done, shouldn't automatically get you called a tether. You know what I'm saying? So that's my stance on it. He already took Professor Smalls out of it. And Professor Smalls, I was in Ghana with Professor Smalls. I understand kind of where he's coming at from it. I don't think he's excusing the Africans or the Africans from the diaspora that are not on code. I don't think he's excusing those ones. I just think that he's saying, hey, we need to be together with our brothers and sisters if they want to be together with us. If they want to be together with us, then we need to unite. If you don't want to be together with us, then forget about y'all. We don't need y'all. We need to separate ourselves from y'all. If y'all don't want to identify as black, if y'all don't want to identify as coming together with the brothers and sisters here and trying to build, then we don't need y'all around. We don't need. Yeah, I don't think he just saying, as far as I understand, I don't think that's what he's on. Like, oh, we just need to, the type of stuff that it seems like Dr. Umar's on. I don't think he's on that. He even has some, when I was in Ghana, he has a story about Dr. Umar, because I think Dr. Umar had come on one of his trips. He was going to tell me, but I don't think he ever told me. But yeah, I don't think he's on that, y'all. So that's my stance. I am an FBA. I'm still an FBA. And, because you are what you are, if the term of it is strictly a lineage, you are what you are. So I cannot not be FBA according to the lineage. But the whole situation where, okay, brother 19 Keys just voiced an opinion and he was just saying what it seems to me where it was at right now. I don't think he's wrong for voicing that opinion. So with that being said, I'm out. This is your brother Jay International. Like, share, and subscribe. If you got something to say in the comment, and I will respond. Peace.